$1 million. Leave my daughter. My enemy flicked the check into my face. I laughed, tore the paper into confetti right in front of him, and pulled his daughter tight against my chest. Father-in-law, bringing up money really hurts the sentiment. I was a destitute cellist. To exact my revenge, I seduced the Vance family's most cherished princess. She fought her family for me. She stole trade secrets from me. At the victory gala, I personally sent her father to prison and whispered in her ear, "I don't love you. I only hate you." Caleb, remember this. Your father was a dog that couldn't be trained. Now you're just the same. Richard Vance's voice was calm, stating a fact rather than an insult. He elegantly used a silk handkerchief to wipe non-existent dust from his fingertips, then slid the document declaring the bankruptcy and liquidation of Stone Enterprises across the expensive mahogany desk toward me. I could smell the scent of power on him, cologne mixed with cigar smoke. Outside the window lay the city skyline I once knew like the back of my hand. Now, workers were dismantling the massive logo atop the Stone Enterprises headquarters, a building I had helped design. My father, Marcus Stone, had jumped from the top floor of that building 3 days ago. He didn't even leave a whole corpse behind. Uncle Richard, my voice rasped like sandpaper, my dad, he treated you like a brother. He did. Richard Vance smiled, a cat-and-mouse pity in his eyes. That's why I sent him on his way myself. Caleb, business isn't a dinner party. It's kill or be killed. Your father was too naive. And you? You're too green. He stood up, walked over to me, and patted my shoulder condescendingly. Get out of this city. Don't ever come back. For the sake of the years your father followed me, I'll leave you a way out. I was dragged out of the office that once belonged to my father by 2 black-clad bodyguards like a dead dog. At that moment, my only possessions were a dying phone and a chest full of hatred hot enough to burn me to ash. First axiom. The law of imbalance and reconstruction my old world. A stable structure built on my father's sweat, my mother's gentleness, and my own dreams had been spectacularly destroyed by a ground zero event called betrayal. I plummeted into an abyss of chaos. Under a highway overpass, using the last percentage of my battery, I frantically searched for everything about Richard Vance. This man, my father's most trusted brother, had swallowed everything we owned using the most despicable means. His life was glittering. The media called him a godfather of commerce, a gentleman scholar at charity galas. Like a wounded lone wolf, I licked my wounds, searching for his only weakness. Then I saw it. In a Puff Piece interview, a reporter asked him what he cherished most in life. His answer wasn't his massive business empire, nor those hypocritical honors. He said, "It's my daughter, Serafina. She's my only weakness and my hardest armor." In the photo, a girl in a white dress stood beside him. Her face was cold, her features exquisite like a delicate watercolor painting. She looked down slightly, her expression detached, as if the whole world had nothing to do with her. Serafina Vance. At that moment, my heart was seized by a demonic idea. The thing you cherish most will become the spark of my revenge. Everything you inflicted upon my father and me, I will pay back double through your only one. I didn't leave the city. I went dormant in its dirtiest corners. By day, I hauled bricks at construction sites. By night, I washed dishes in a greasy diner. I spent a year scrubbing away every trace of young Master Stone, leaving only bones hardened by hatred and eyes that locked onto their prey. I became the most patient hunter, studying my sole prey, Serafina. She attended the city's most prestigious conservatory, majoring in classical dance and music. She had no friends. She was a loner. She liked to go to the abandoned music room on the hill behind the school when it rained. She was breathtakingly beautiful, but cold as ice, known as the Ice Queen of the Academy. One rainy day, a year later, I took an old cello I bought with all my savings and walked into that abandoned music room. I was about to engineer a magnificent destruction and my own great reconstruction. The first step was to make this canary, kept in a golden cage by Richard Vance, open the door for me, the crow from hell. The abandoned room smelled of dampness and mold. Rain lashed against the glass, creating a monotonous, hypnotic rhythm. I sat on a peeling wooden stool, positioned the old cello, and took a deep breath. This wasn't a performance. It was the start of a hunt. I didn't choose a flashy, technical piece. Instead, I played box air on the G string. The melody was slow, solemn, carrying a sorrow that penetrated to the bone, like a soul praying alone to God in endless darkness. Every note was infused with a year's worth of humiliation, pain, and hatred. I closed my eyes, completely immersed, as if the world contained only me and this instrument. When the piece ended, The resonance lingered in the empty room. I didn't open my eyes immediately. I waited quietly. Sure enough, a clear, cold female voice came from the doorway. "Who are you?" I slowly opened my eyes. Serafina stood there, holding a clear umbrella. Rainwater dripped from the rim, forming a small puddle at her feet. She wore a simple white dress, her black hair cascading like a waterfall, her skin glowing pale in the dim room. Her eyes were just as I'd seen in the photo, detached, indifferent, with a coldness that saw through everything. I stood up and nodded slightly, my voice hoarse and weary. Just a passerby, disturbing the peace. That peace. She ignored my answer and walked into the room, her gaze falling on the cello in my hands. "You played it." Very painfully. "Music is the echo of the heart." I replied faintly. "Is your heart dead?" She tilted her head like a curious child, but the question was incredibly sharp. I smiled self-deprecatingly. "Maybe. Burned to ash a long time ago." She didn't speak again. She walked to a piano covered in a white sheet, lifted the cover, revealing black and white keys. She sat down, her slender fingers gliding over the keys without pressing them, just feeling the cold touch. The room fell into silence, save for the rain outside. I didn't rush to leave, nor did I speak. I knew that for someone as isolated as her, silent companionship was far more effective than contrived conversation. She was examining me, dissecting me in her own way, and I accepted her scrutiny calmly. After a long time, she whispered, "I'm Serafina Vance. Caleb Stone." I gave my new name. Hard, grounded. My life had no more softness in it. "Do you come here often?" she asked. First time, I looked at her. "Might come more often in the future." "Why?" "Because it's quiet enough to bury things." My words seemed to touch her. She looked at me, and for the first time, there was a ripple in those icy eyes. She stood up, picked up her umbrella, walked to the door, and looked back at me. "It will rain again tomorrow." With that, she turned and vanished into the curtain of rain. I watched her retreating back and slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. The fish had taken a bait. I knew that from today on, the name Caleb Stone, this cello, and this abandoned room would become the only variable in her frozen world. A beautiful accident, manufactured by my own hands. Over the next few days, I went to the music room at the same time, every day. She came every day too. We didn't exchange many words. I played my cello. She listened quietly, occasionally playing a short segment on the piano. Our communication seemed to exist entirely within the music. I knew I was invading her world in the most artistic, harmless way possible. She was like a highly alert, small animal, and I had to disguise myself as a motionless tree, waiting for her to approach on her own. Until the fourth day, she initiated the conversation. "Your hands. They don't look like a cellist's hands." I lifted my left hand. It was covered in calluses and scars, marks left by the construction site over the past year. "Life forces your hand," I said calmly. "Playing cello is the dream. Hauling bricks is reality." She walked up to me, reached out her flawless, art piece hands, and gently touched the scar on the back of my hand. Her fingertips were cold. "Does it hurt?" I went numb a long time ago. She withdrew her hand, her eyes holding an emotion I couldn't quite read. "My dad. He likes the cello too," she said suddenly. My heart stirred. I knew the critical moment had arrived. "Is that so? He must be someone who really understands life," I said in the blandest tone possible. "No," she shook her head, the corner of her mouth hooking into a sarcastic arc. "He only likes cellos that hang on the wall as decorations. He likes everything that looks elegant, but he doesn't understand, nor does he care to understand." For a moment, I almost thought she knew about the blood feud between me and her father. But her eyes told me she was just stating a fact that made her lonely. I seized the opportunity. "Maybe he's just too busy. Busy making money, busy being a success in everyone else's eyes," she whispered, as if talking to herself. "Busy enough to forget how to love a person." I looked at her. The Serafina before me was no longer the unreachable ice queen, but a pitiful girl wrapped in gold and loneliness. For the first time, I felt a complex emotion toward her other than revenge tool. It was pity. The turning point happened a week later. That day, I was playing in a music room, as usual, when a girl from the construction site brought me the lunch I'd forgotten. Her name was Mia. She was cheerful and had always had a bit of a crush on me. She handed me the lunchbox, grinning. "Caleb, I knew you'd forget again. Eat it while it's hot." I was about to thank her when, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash of white at the door. It was Serafina. She saw us, then walked away without a word. My heart skipped a beat. I knew the show was about to start. I deliberately smiled at Mia and said, "Thanks, Mia. You're really thoughtful. Mia blushed, chatted a bit more, and skipped away. I opened the lunchbox. The food was still steaming, but I had no appetite. I knew my smile just now. That compliment was like a depth charge dropped with precision, churning up massive waves in the seemingly calm lake of Serafina's heart. Sure enough, the next day, when I went to the music room, Serafina was already there. She wasn't sitting at the piano. She was standing where I usually sat, holding a piece of sheet music. "What's this?" I asked. "The Devil's Trill." She handed me the music, her voice colder than usual. "Play it for me." I took the sheet music, a chill running down my spine. Tartini's Devil's Trill Sonata was a pinnacle of violin repertoire, famous for its extreme difficulty and bizarre, violent melody. Legend had it the composer sold his soul to the devil in a dream to write it. Performing it on a cello doubled the difficulty. She was testing me and also venting the storm inside her. "I'll try." I didn't refuse. I set the cello, raised the bow, and took a deep breath. The passionate and eerie melody instantly flowed from my fingertips, full of unease, struggle, and rage. I used almost all my strength to tame this piece that roared like a demon. Sweat slid down my forehead, dripping onto the cello's body. Serafina stood opposite me, watching motionless. Her gaze was focused and burning, as if admiring a sacrifice offered solely to her. When the piece ended, I was nearly physically collapsed. "How was it?" I asked, panting. "Good." She walked up to me, reached out, and used her fingertip to gently wipe a bead of sweat from my cheek. Her movement was light, yet carried a dominance that allowed no refusal. "But I don't like it." "Why?" "I don't like her." She looked into my eyes, speaking each word clearly. "The girl who brought you lunch." It was happening. My heart raced, but on the surface, I feigned confusion. "Mia? She's just a co-worker." "Co-worker?" Serafina's lips curled into a cold smile. The way she looked at you didn't look like she was looking at a normal co-worker. Caleb," she interrupted me, her voice carrying an unquestionable command. "From now on, I will bring your lunch." I froze. Also, she took a step forward, closer to me, close enough that I could smell the scent on her, cool like grass after rain. "I don't want any other woman coming near this music room." In that moment, I clearly saw a flash of insane possessiveness in her eyes. That wasn't love. It was a desire to completely devour me, to merge me into her bones and blood. The role I was playing was that of an ordinary man attracted by her unique temperament, but also slightly unsettled by her intensity. I frowned, showing just the right amount of hesitation and offended distance, and said softly, "Sarah, you're being a little controlling." That sentence was the hook in the test. I was gambling that a girl like her, satisfied materially since childhood, but emotionally isolated, had a pathological fascination with resistance. The more you pushed away, the more she wanted to grab hold. Predictably, the arc of her smile deepened. It wasn't a smile of joy, but the pleasure of control. "Am I?" She took another step, staring at me unblinkingly with those cold eyes. "I could be even more controlling." "Caleb, I'm just taking back what belongs to me." "When did I become yours?" My tone carried a chill. "From the moment your music sounded from my ears alone, you were—" Her words were understated, but carried an undeniable declaration. I fell silent. I had to show struggle, the normal reaction of a regular guy facing this kind of extreme possessiveness, shock, confusion, and a wavering attraction to her unique charisma. "You're unreasonable." I finally spat out those words, turned around, and started packing my cello, my movements agitated. This was my resistance. She didn't stop me. She just watched quietly. When I shouldered the case and prepared to leave, she spoke again, her voice holding a barely perceptible fragility. "Because no one has ever performed for me like you do. I hate sharing it with anything, even a little bit." "See," she started explaining. This was a signal. She was afraid I would actually leave. I stopped walking, didn't turn back, just gave her my back. "I'll come tomorrow." I dropped the sentence and walked out of the music room without looking at her again. I knew I had won the first round of this psychological game. The next day, it was raining again. When I walked into the music room, Serafina was already sitting at the piano. Beside her sat an exquisite, expensive thermal lunchbox. Seeing me enter, she stood up and opened the box. Inside were dishes arranged like works of art, meat and vegetables perfectly balanced. "I made it," she said, her tone flat but hiding a trace of expectation. I looked at the food and sneered internally. These hands were for playing million-dollar pianos and wearing top-tier jewelry. How could they cook? This was just a lie she carefully wove to keep me ordered from the highest-end private kitchen. I didn't expose her. I sat down, picked up the chopsticks, and ate in silence. The taste was indeed impeccable. Is it good? She sat opposite me, resting her chin on her hand, watching me like a precious exhibit. Yeah, I nodded. From now on, I'll prepare it for you every day, she announced, like a queen issuing a decree of grace. I didn't answer, just ate silently. To her, my silence was consent. From that day on, I became her exclusive audience, and she became my exclusive provider. I never saw Mia again. Serafina must have used some rich person method I wasn't privy to, making her disappear from my construction site. I didn't ask. The role I played only required me to play cello and eat quietly. I was using a boiling frog method, letting her slowly get used to my existence, letting her feel she had completely controlled me. I became the only variable in her life, the only color. She began to talk more and more about her family, her father. My dad was on the financial news again today, she would say nonchalantly while wiping a grain of rice from the corner of my mouth with a napkin. They say he's a legend, but he doesn't even know what I like to eat. He's just busy. I repeated the pale defense. Yeah, busy swallowing other companies, busy stepping on opponents. She laughed, full of cold mockery. Like stepping on an ant. Caleb, do you think the people he stepped on hate him? My hand gripped the chopsticks violently, knuckles turning white. I looked up, met her gaze, and used all my strength to keep my voice steady. Of course they do. They probably hate him enough to want to eat his flesh and sleep on his skin. Hearing this, she smiled satisfied, as if my answer pleased her. She reached out, gently stroking my cheek, her eyes misty. Caleb, you're so good, she whispered. You're different from all of them. You only belong to me, right? Looking at the deepening, morbid obsession in her eyes, I knew the time was near. My revenge needed a key, a unique key capable of opening Richard Vance's fortified fortress. And this key was hidden inside this golden cage. I just needed her to willingly steal it from me. Our relationship heated up in a strange calm. The music room became our Eden, a world of two isolated from all outside noise. Here, I was her only artist, and she was the only soulmate who understood me. She started taking me out of the music room into her world. It was a mansion located in the city's top residential district, big as a palace, but cold as a tomb. Outside the massive floor-to-ceiling windows lay a manicured garden. Inside were priceless art pieces and furniture. But there wasn't a trace of human warmth. You live here alone? I stood in the center of the vast living room, asking deliberately. She pulled a bottle of red wine from a temperature-control cabinet. My dad is busy. He rarely comes back once a month. There are butlers and maids, but I prefer to be alone. She poured me a glass, the liquid gleaming like a ruby in the crystal stemware. Try it. 86 Romani Conti. I took the glass, but didn't drink. I looked at her and said softly, I don't know wine. I just think. This house is too big and too cold. My words made her hand pause. She looked at me, a fragility revealing itself in her eyes that I had never seen before. Yes, too cold, she murmured. Cold as an ice cellar. Sometimes I wake up at night and feel like my breathing is the only sound in the house, like I'm the only person left in the world. This was what I wanted. I needed her to believe I was the only person in the world who could give her warmth. I put down the glass, walked up to her, reached out, and gently pulled her into my arms. Her body was stiff, like a cat that had never been held. But after a moment of struggle, she relaxed, burying her head in my chest. My chest, solid muscle honed on construction sites, was to her a warm and safe harbor she had never known. From now on, you won't be, I whispered in her ear. I'm here with you. She didn't speak, only tightened her arms around my waist. That night, I stayed at her villa. She led me to a guest room where everything was brand new, from the bedding to the toiletries, all top-tier brands. These were all prepared for you, she said, standing at the door looking at me. My heart was gripped by a complex, icy chill. This wasn't a whim, it was premeditated. She had long prepared this new home for me, a more magnificent, more secure cage. I began to tell the story I had fabricated for myself. A story of an orphan whose parents died early, struggling at the bottom of society, but still loving music. I downplayed all the suffering, but every word was a needle, precisely piercing the softest parts of her heart. Listening, her eyes turned red. Caleb, she walked to my bedside, sat down, and looked at me. From now on, I'll protect you. No one can bully you again. She leaned down, her cold lips pressing against my forehead. Then my eyes, the tip of my nose. Finally my lips. It was a kiss devoid of lust, yet full of possession and proclamation. as if branding her mark on a lost and found treasure. I didn't respond, nor did I push her away. I just kept my eyes open, looking at her up close, watching a tear hang on her long lashes as she closed her eyes. In that moment, my hatred and my plan wavered for the first time. I hated her father, but the girl before me was also a victim. She was the loneliest sacrifice piled up by Richard Vance's money and power. But the hesitation lasted less than a second. The image of my father's tragic death flooded my mind, washing away that untimely pity. When she ended the kiss and looked at me obsessively, I gave her a gentle, sad smile. I knew I completely owned her. Or rather, she completely owned me. The next step was for her to take me to meet her father. I wanted Richard Vance to see with his own eyes how his most precious armor was being corroded inch by inch from the inside by me, the ant in his eyes. Richard Vance returned on a weekend afternoon. Without warning, Serafina and I were in the living room. I was playing the cello. She was leaning on the sofa, listening quietly. Sunlight spilled through the massive windows, casting warm spots on the floor. It was a fake, yet incredibly cozy scene. The sound of the door lock shattered it all. Richard Vance appeared at the door wearing a tailored casual suit, carrying a golf bag. When he saw me in the living room, the smile on his face instantly froze. His look went from shock to scrutiny, and finally to a coldness dipped in poison. I knew that look too well. A year ago, he looked at me the same way, like a bug he could crush at any time. "Sarah, who is this?" He handed the golf bag to the rushing butler, his tone calm, but carrying the oppressive pressure of a coming storm. Serafina stood up, walked to my side, naturally linked her arm through mine, and looked up to meet her father's gaze. "Dad, this is Caleb Stone. He's my boyfriend." "Boyfriend?" Vance repeated the word, the corner of his mouth hooking into a meaningful sneer. He walked to the sofa, sat down, crossed his legs, and swept his gaze over me like a searchlight. "Mr. Stone, is it?" He looked at me. "Where do you work?" "I work construction," I answered calmly, neither humble nor arrogant. "Construction?" Vance looked like he'd heard the world's biggest joke. He leaned back and let out a low laugh. Serafina's face went pale instantly, and her grip on my arm tightened. "Dad, his cello playing is better than anyone at the conservatory." "Oh, is that so?" Vance stopped laughing, sat up straight, and looked at me. "So, the cello playing, Mr. Stone, how much do you think your music is worth a month?" This was naked humiliation. I didn't get angry. I just smiled faintly. "Mr. Vance, art is priceless, just like family and trust." I deliberately emphasized the word trust. Vance's pupils contracted sharply. He stared at me dead on, seeming to want to find familiar traces in my strange face. The atmosphere in the living room dropped to freezing point. Finally, Serafina broke the silence. "Dad, that's enough," she almost screamed. "Caleb is a guest I invited, not a subordinate for you to humiliate." "Guest?" Vance pulled a checkbook and a gold pen from his jacket pocket, scribbled a string of numbers, tore it off, and threw it on the coffee table. "Mr. Stone, here is 1 million. Take it and leave my daughter." His voice was devoid of emotion. "If you think it's too little, fill in your own number." A classic scene, cliché but effective. I looked at the check like it was waste paper. I didn't move, just looked at Serafina. I knew it was her turn now. This war needed to be started by her. Serafina was trembling all over, not from fear, but from rage. She looked at her father, the man she had feared since childhood, her eyes filled with disappointment and finality for the first time. She snatched up the check and, right in front of Richard Vance, tore it bit by bit into shreds. "In your world, does money measure everything?" Her voice shook with emotion. "Friendship, love, family, even dignity?" She threw the confetti hard into Vance's face. "I'm telling you, Caleb isn't leaving. If he goes, I go with him." Vance's face turned iron gray for the first time. He probably never imagined his always obedient, indifferent daughter would resist him so fiercely for a poor boy. "Good. Very good." He squeezed the words through his teeth, standing up abruptly. "I want to see what kind of fairy tale life you live without Vance money." He stormed out, slamming the door. The massive sound announced the first formal break between father and daughter. Silence returned to the living room. Serafina swayed, and I quickly supported her. She turned, hugged me tightly, buried her face in my chest, and cried repressively. "Caleb, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." She apologized endlessly. "Silly girl, you're not the one who should be sorry." I gently patted her back, my voice full of emotion and heartache. Inside, I sneered. "Richard Vance, do you see? You think money solves everything, but you're wrong. The golden cage you built for your daughter has been cracked open by her own hands, for me. And this is just the beginning. Your check started her war, and her war will pave the final road for my revenge. Vance's retaliation came fast and direct. The next day, I was fired by the site foreman. The reason was someone higher up made a call. Immediately after, the diner fired me too, claiming business is bad. He cut off all my sources of income, trying to use the most primal method, starvation, to force me into submission. He underestimated me, and he underestimated his desperate daughter. When I returned to the villa despondent and told Serafina the news, she just listened calmly, then brought out a black bank card from her room and shoved it into my hand. "Take it," she said. "No pin, no limit. I can't take this." I pushed it back immediately, performing the last fragile shred of a man's pride. "Caleb, listen to me." She grabbed my hand, her eyes stubborn and frantic. "My dad can cut off your road, so I can pave a brand new one for you. The more he wants to separate us, the more I want to show him how well we can live." Her logic was completely twisted. In her view, this was no longer a conflict between me and her father, but a war between her and him, and I was the trophy and ally she had to defend to the death. "But, no buts," she interrupted, standing on tiptoes to kiss my lips. "I told you, I'll protect you." I was eventually forced to accept the card. Serafina began to display our happy life to her father in an almost boastful way. She rented a high-end apartment in the city center for me, with 180-degree floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city nightscape. She bought me the world's most expensive cello, the wood hundreds of years old, tone flawless. She filled my closet with designer clothes, each piece worth a fortune. I transformed from a poor construction boy into a canary kept by her. The price was my freedom. She bought me a new phone, claiming it was convenient for contact. But I soon discovered the phone came pre-installed with tracking software. She knew exactly where I was at all times. She didn't like me going out unless she was with me. She took me to the highest-end restaurants, the most private clubs, linking her arm in mine, introducing me to her circle. "This is Caleb, my man." Her eyes were constantly on me, like two invisible searchlights. If I said one word too many to a waiter, she noticed immediately and warned me with a look. That wasn't love. That was surveillance. The apartment we lived in was just a more exquisite velvet cage. The chains were her sick love and endless wealth. I started to feel suffocated. Part of this suffocation was a performance, to make her believe my discomfort and struggle, but another part was real. I had underestimated the extent of her obsession. One night, I used the excuse of buying cigarettes to go to the convenience store downstairs. Using cash, I bought a burner SIM card and contacted an old associate of my father's named Ray. Ray was the person my father trusted most. After Stone Enterprises was swallowed, Vance kicked him to the curb too. I knew he was waiting for a chance at revenge, just like me. We spoke for less than 5 minutes, agreeing on the next plan. But when I returned to the apartment, Serafina was sitting in the dark living room, waiting. In front of her lay my new phone, screen lit, displaying the location map. My position was clearly marked. "Where did you go?" Her voice was exceptionally cold in the darkness. "Downstairs, convenience store." "Smokes." My chest tightened, but my face remained impassive. "Really?" She stood up, walking toward me step by step. "You were gone 15 minutes. From our place to the store is 5 minutes round trip. Who did you see in those extra 10 minutes? Cold sweat instantly beaded on my back. I just walked around downstairs, got some air. Air! She walked up to me, reached into my pocket, and pulled out the pack I just bought. She didn't look at the cigarettes. She stared dead into my eyes. "Caleb, are you hiding something from me?" "No." I denied it flatly. She laughed suddenly, a smile eerie and tragic. "You know, I hate it most when people lie to me." She turned to the window and pulled open the curtains. Outside was the glittering city night. On a massive LED screen of the building directly opposite us, surveillance footage was looping. In the video, I stood in the corner of the store, making a call while looking around warily. The image was crystal clear. She had actually used Vance connections to pull commercial security footage and rented the ad screen across the street, just to show me. "Now, do you still want to say you were getting air?" She turned back, looking at me not with anger, but with a terrifying calmness. "Who exactly? Did you see?" Looking at her, for the first time, I felt that maybe I wasn't the hunter. I was the prey walking step by step into a trap. In that instant, my brain spun at high speed. I couldn't admit it. Admitting it meant failure. I had to give an explanation she would believe, one that would further stimulate her to be useful to me. I shifted my gaze from the giant screen to her pale, stubborn face. Instead of panic, I put on an expression of utter pain and humiliation. "Yes," I started voice hoarse. "I saw someone." Her body went rigid. It was the foreman from the old construction site. I continued weaving the lie, every word full of forced helplessness. He found me, said he knew I was with you, wanted to get some money out of me. He blackmailed you? Serafina's brow furrowed instantly, eyes turning sharp. He said if I didn't pay, he'd leak our affair to the tabloids. I lower my head, fists clenched, body trembling slightly with rage. He said he knows the Vance family cares most about reputation and knows your father. Looks down on me. It was the perfect lie. The suspicion in Serafina's eyes was slowly replaced by anger and heartache. She walked to me, cupped my face, and used her thumb to wipe away a trace of moisture I had squeezed from the corner of my eye. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to think I was useless. I looked at her, eyes full of struggle. I wanted to solve it myself. How? By giving him money. You're too naive, Caleb, she interrupted, voice returning to that cold rationality. People like that are sharks smelling blood. You can never feed them enough. She turned, picked up her own phone, and dialed a number. It's me, her voice devoid of emotion. Handle someone for me. Yes, a foreman named Caleb. What's his name? She looked back at me. I made up a name. Mike Large. Mike Large, she continued into the phone. I don't want to see this person in New York again. How you do it? I don't care. Hanging up, she deleted the call log, then looked at me as if she had just handled a trivial matter. There, no one will bother you again. I looked at her, a bone-chilling cold rising in my heart. Her way of dealing with people was exactly the same as her father, Richard Vance. But I knew my chance had come. I feigned fear and gratitude, hugging her tightly. Sarah, thank you. Between us, no need for thanks. She patted my back. After a moment, I spoke hesitantly. Sarah, I don't want to go on like this. What do you mean? I don't want to be a man protected behind you anymore. I looked into her eyes, my gaze incredibly sincere. Your father was right. I don't deserve you right now, but I want to rely on my own efforts to stand beside you proudly. She listened quietly. I want to do something, I said, even if it's starting small. I want your father to see I'm not useless trash who only plays cello. These words precisely hit what she desired most. She wanted me to gain her father's approval. She was silent for a long time, seemingly considering the feasibility. What do you want to do? I know nothing about business, I smiled self-mockingly. The only thing I'm familiar with is probably my father's old company, even though it belongs to the Vance Sass now. I casually mentioned the key point. Stone Enterprises. It's called Vance Tech now, she murmured. That's my dad's masterpiece. I know, I nodded. I'm just a little unreconciled. If there was a chance to go in and learn, even starting from the bottom, I'd be satisfied. Serafina's eyes lit up. She seemed to see a possibility that thrilled her, letting me into her father's company, letting me prove myself right under her father's nose. This satisfied her desire to control and transform everything far more than simply giving me money. Okay, she agreed quickly. I'll talk to Dad. Will he agree? He will. Serafina's face revealed a confident, even cruel smile. Right now, the last thing he wants is for me to leave him. To keep me, he'll agree to anything. 3 days later, I got a Vance Tech employee ID. Position, chairman's assistant intern. A role that could legitimately enter Richard Vance's office and access core secrets. Vance saw me in his office. His eyes were full of disgust and contempt, but he said nothing, just threw the badge in front of me. Don't try anything funny, he warned. I'll be watching your every move. Thank you, Mr. Vance. I smiled and took the card. That wasn't employee ID. That was a venomous key Serafina had stolen from me, using her shattered trust with her father, a key to the enemy's core. And I would use this key to open the gates of hell. Entering Vance Tech, my revenge plan officially entered the final phase. By day, I played the cautious, eager to learn in turn, enduring the scornful looks of Vance and his executives. I filed documents, fetched coffee, did the most menial tasks. This humiliation was the best camouflage. Richard Vance looked at me like I was a useless eyesore his daughter had forced upon him. He lowered his guard because, deep down, he despised me. But at night, back in that luxury apartment, I would transmit all the documents and meeting minutes I had secretly photographed with microcameras during the day to Ray. Using his past connections and experience at Stone Enterprises, Ray pieced together these fragmented bits of information, slowly sketching out the true map inside Vance Tech, shady contracts, regulatory violations, and a fatal secret acquisition plan. Vance was plotting a malicious snake-swallows-elephant acquisition. The target was his longtime competitor, another public conglomerate. To raise the funds, he embezzled massive amounts of the company's liquid capital and cooked a perfect set of books to deal with the board and regulators. This was his death blow. Meanwhile, my relationship with Serafina entered a new stage because of my ambition. She became obsessed with the feeling of remaking me. She personally taught me how to read financial reports and explain business cases. She treated me like her most perfect creation, carefully sculpting me. She smiled more and more. The cold detachment faded, replaced by the sweetness of an ordinary girl in love. Sometimes, watching her seriously explain K-line charts to me, my heart would inexplicable twinge. She didn't know that every move she taught me would become a blade thrust at her father. I was like a master actor, showing her deep affection while sharpening my butcher knife in my heart. Finally, a month later, Ray told me all the evidence was gathered. We just needed the right moment. I created the moment. It was the Vance Tech Annual Victory Gala, a night of designer gowns, champagne, and socializing. Richard Vance, the star of the show, accepted everyone's compliments with a beaming face. Serafina attended in full regalia as his daughter, wearing a black evening gown, beautiful as a dark elf. She linked her arm in mine, proudly introducing me to everyone. This is Caleb, my boyfriend. He's helping Dad at the company now. The looks people gave me were full of complex emotions, jealousy, disdain, and a trace of curiosity. I smiled and handled them all. Halfway through the gala, Richard Vance went on stage to speak. He painted a grand blueprint for the company, his words full of confidence and pride. Just as his speech reached its climax, every screen in the banquet hall suddenly went black. A second later, what appeared on the screens wasn't the Vance corporate reel, but secret contracts stamped with red seals, clear records of fund embezzlement, and the raw data of the fake accounts that had been made seamless. All evidence pointed to the spirited man on stage, Richard Vance. The banquet hall fell into a dead silence instantly. Then came an uproar like a tsunami. Flash bulbs went off like madness as reporters rushed the stage. Vance stood there, face pale as a sheet, looking like his skeleton had been removed. And I stood in the crowd, watching it all coldly. This was my victory. I felt Serafina's body trembling violently beside me. She looked at the evidence on the screens in disbelief, then jerked her head to look at me. Her eyes were filled with shock, confusion, and fear. Caleb, this isn't real, is it? Her voice carried a sob. I didn't answer her. I just looked at her, looked at this girl I had used, pushed into the abyss. Then, slowly, I revealed a cold, strange smile I had never shown her before. She understood. In an instant, all the light in her eyes went out. 2 lines of clear tears slid silently down her perfect cheeks. Those were her tears, but they were the bugle call of my revenge, the declaration of my victory. Why? Serafina's voice was light as a feather, but it smashed heavily onto my heart. Her face was bloodless. Those eyes that were once cold or obsessive now held only a hollowness after shattering. I didn't answer immediately. I savored the moment. I watched Richard Vance surrounded by reporters and angry shareholders on stage, like a beast cornered, utterly wretched. I watched this man who once stood high above, dictating the fate of my father and me. Now, all his dignity and pride were torn to shreds by my own hands. Slowly, I shifted my gaze from him back to Serafina's face. Because my name isn't Caleb Stone. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly into her ears. She shook all over, staring at me with the eyes of someone looking at a stranger. My last name is Stone, I said, word by word, clearly. But my father was Marcus Stone. Marcus Stone. The name exploded in her mind like thunder. Of course she remembered that name. That was her father's most capable partner, and also, the friend pushed into the abyss by her father's own hands. The hollowness on her face was gradually replaced by a massive, incomprehensible terror. You are. That's right. I met her gaze, the smile at the corner of my mouth growing colder. I am Marcus Stone's son, the son of the man your father forced to jump off a building, leaving no corpse intact. I took a step closer to her, and in her ear, using a voice only the two of us could hear, I cruelly unveiled the entire truth. The cello music you liked was played with longing for my father and hatred for you people. The so-called love was a carefully designed scam to get close to you, to revenge myself on your father. The protection you took pride in, the control you thought was unbreakable from start to finish, was just a link in my plan. Serafina Vance, you were just like your father, stupid and arrogant. Every word was a poison knife, stabbing viciously into her heart. Her body began to sway, as if she would collapse at any moment. But she didn't. She used all her strength to support herself. She looked at me, and the last bit of light in those beautiful eyes completely extinguished. So, everything was fake? she murmured. No, I shook my head, leaned down, looked straight in her eyes, and dealt the final blow. One thing was real. What? I really do think. You are pathetic. With that, I straightened up and stopped looking at her. For someone proud to the bone, pity was a humiliation more cruel than hatred. Just then, the doors to the hall were slammed open. Ray walked in with a group of uniformed economic crime officers. Mr. Richard Vance, the lead officer, showed his badge. We suspect you of embezzlement, commercial fraud, malicious market manipulation, and other charges. Please come with us for investigation. Vance looked 20 years older in an instant. He looked at me, eyes full of venom and unwillingness. It was you. So it was you, you little bastard. He roared, trying to lunge at me like a crazy trapped beast, but was pinned down by the police. I ignored his screaming. My revenge was complete. I stood in the center of the messy banquet hall like a victor. I took back everything that should have been mine and sent my enemy to hell with my own hands. I should have felt joy, but why was my heart terribly empty? Subconsciously, I turned back to look for Serafina. She was gone. While everyone was focused on the farce of Vance being taken away, she, the girl completely destroyed by me, had quietly disappeared into the crowd. 3 days later, Vance Tech held an emergency board meeting. With the support of Ray and several old directors, and as the sole heir of Stone Enterprises Plus holding the fatal evidence against Vance, I successfully regained control of the company. The company name was changed back to Stone Enterprises. I did it. I stood in the top floor chairman's office, once my father's, then Vance's, now back in my hands, looking down at the familiar city. I avenged my father, cleared his name. I became the new monarch of this business kingdom. But in my kingdom, there was silence. No joy of victory, only boundless emptiness and exhaustion, drowning me like a tide. I won everything, but it seemed I also lost everything. My phone beeped. A text from an unknown number. Inside, there was only a photo. The background was that abandoned music room. Serafina sat before that old piano in a white dress. She was much thinner, her face pale as paper. She wasn't looking at the camera, just sitting quietly, staring blankly ahead. Beside her hand lay a cello. It was the cheapest, most battered cello I had originally used to approach her. My heart felt like it was seized by an invisible hand. I rushed out of the office like a madman, drove down, and sped toward the Art Academy. I broke into the back hill, kicked open the door of the music room. It was empty, only the piano and the cello standing quietly in the corner. On the cello lay a piece of sheet music. It was Air on the G string, the piece I played the first time I met her. In the margin, there was a line of writing in her hand, elegant, but carrying a bone-deep desolation. Caleb Stone died in that rain. Now it's my turn. I held the sheet music and collapsed on the floor. Massive fear and regret swallowed me completely for the first time. I got my revenge. I became the king. But I personally killed the only girl who understood my music. I became the monarch of this silent kingdom, but I lost my audience forever. In the years that followed, I possessed money, power, and status. I rebuilt the glory of Stone Enterprises. But I never played the cello again. Because I knew, no matter how magnificent the movement I played, there would never be a girl named Serafina sitting quietly in the corner asking, "Is your heart dead?" Yeah, it died a long time ago. On the night she shed that tear, it was buried along with a liar named Caleb. Top floor of the Stone Enterprises Tower. I was the new master here. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city was still bustling, neon lights flickering. I held a glass of expensive whiskey, ice clinking crisply. This should be the taste of victory. Yet all I tasted was bitterness and panic deep in my bones. Serafina had vanished. I used every power available to me. I had Ray check all exit records, traffic info, credit card usage. I hired private investigators to practically turn the city upside down. Nothing. Nothing at all. She evaporated like a drop of water in the ocean. She took away all my peace. By day, I was the decisive new commander of Stone Enterprises, cleaning up Vance's mess, consolidating my empire. By night, I returned to that empty, luxurious penthouse in the city center, the first cage she built for me. Her scent was everywhere here. Dresses she hadn't had time to wear hung in the closet. Half-used perfume sat on the vanity. The expensive cello stood quietly in the music room, mocking me. I had insomnia every night, her shattered eyes from the banquet hall replaying in my mind. I started frantically texting her deactivated number, knowing there would be no reply. "Where are you? I'm sorry. Come back, please." Stone sinking into the sea. I discovered for the first time that the control I took pride in was so fragile before her. I could control $1 billion company, but I couldn't find the one person I wanted to find. I became the world's richest, most pathetic joke. Just as I was about to be driven mad by this despair, I received an anonymous package. Inside, there was no letter, only a small black velvet box. Trembling, I opened it. Inside lay an exquisite cufflink. It was one I used to wear. One morning, she had chosen it and put it on me with her own hands. I remembered her saying, "You look best in a white shirt." Now, it lay quietly in the box like a eulogy from hell. I immediately had Ray trace the package, but the result was nothing. The package appeared out of thin air. She was back. No, perhaps she never left. She was in some corner of this city, watching me coldly like a ghost. I thought I was the hunter and she the prey. Only now did I realize that when she was reborn from that destruction, our roles had completely reversed. She became the new hunter, and I was her sole prey, with nowhere to run. Starting with the cufflink, Serafina's game officially began. She no longer hid, but announced her existence in a nearly cruel way. One late night, while I was processing documents in the office, my private email received an audio file. No subject, no sender. I clicked play. It was air on the G string. It was the exact recording of me playing for her the first time in the music room. The melody was melodious and sad, every note matching my memory perfectly. Just as I was immersed in it, a very soft sigh of a woman came from the background of the audio. It was her voice. I shot up from my chair, heart pounding. I immediately had the company tech team trace the IP address, but the opponent was clearly a top expert. All traces were wiped clean. She was like a ghost, mocking me for the first time in the digital world. This was just the beginning. The next day, I was chairing an important board meeting. Halfway through, the giant screen in the conference room playing the PPT suddenly flashed and switched to a high-definition video. The background was the bedroom of the penthouse we used to share. In the frame, I was lying in bed, sleeping soundly. And Serafina, wearing a silk nightgown, sat by the bed, looking at my sleeping face obsessively, like admiring a work of art. She reached out, her fingertips gently tracing my eyebrows, nose bridge, lips. That look was gentle, yet full of a chilling possessiveness. The conference room went into an uproar. Blood drained from my face. I slammed my fist on the table, roaring at the stunned technician. "Turn it off! Turn it off!" The feed was cut, but the directors looked at me with incredibly strange expressions. I wretchedly announced a recess, rushed back to my office, and locked the door. I leaned against it, body shaking uncontrollably. When was that filmed? I had no idea. How many secrets did she hide around me? She was like a massive, invisible web that had long wrapped me tight. My self-righteous control was nothing but a child's tantrum in her eyes. She didn't just want revenge. She wanted to destroy me completely. She wanted me to taste what she had tasted. The bone-deep humiliation and despair of being deceived and betrayed by the closest person and finally played in the palm of their hand. My life turned into a living hell. I dared not sleep, feeling eyes staring at me in the dark. I dared not trust anyone, not knowing who might be her pawn. I became paranoid, irritable. Employees walked around me. Ray advised me to see a shrink more than once. How could I? I was afraid the doctor was arranged by her too. I was forced onto an isolated island by her, slowly sinking in endless suspicion and fear. I knew she was waiting for me to break completely, waiting for me to kneel before her, wagging my tail for pity. I decided not to wait passively anymore. Rather than be driven crazy step by step, better to attack. I announced a high-profile project through the media. Stone Enterprises would fund the restoration of the abandoned art district in the south of the city, converting the core building into a non-profit classical concert hall. That art district was where the abandoned music room was. I was gambling that the place meant as much to her as it did to me. That was where our story began and where it should end. 3 days after the news release, I received her invitation. Still an anonymous email. Tonight, 10 p.m. Stone Tower, rooftop. No extra words. I dismissed all staff working overtime and security and, alone, at 9:50 p.m., took the elevator to the top of the city. The night wind at 10 o'clock was cold. The rooftop was empty, only the city lights below converging into a brilliant galaxy. My father had jumped from here, ending his life. Her choice of location was vicious. "You came." A cold voice sounded behind me. I spun around. Serafina stood at the door to the roof, wearing a long black trench coat, the wind whipping her hem and long hair. She was even thinner, her chin pointier in a heartbreaking way, but those eyes were shockingly bright. It was a light burning with madness, hatred, and a twisted love. What exactly do you want? My voice was hoarse with agitation. What do I want? She laughed, walking toward me step by step, her heels clicking on the ground like a countdown to death. I should be asking you that. Mr. Stone. Oh no, I should call you Young Master Stone. She stopped in front of me, looking up. You destroyed everything of mine. My home, my father, my love, my entire world. And then you asked me what I want. Your father got what he deserved. I roared. Yes, he did. She nodded, terrifyingly calm. He's a bastard, a hypocrite. He belongs in hell. But her tone shifted, eyes becoming incredibly sharp. What about you? How are you any different from him? I froze. You used the most despicable means, manipulated a woman's feelings to achieve your revenge. You treated me like a tool, a key, threw me away when you were done. Caleb, she used my name for the first time. Tell me, what is the difference between you and him? I had no words, because she was right. In the process of revenge to kill the dragon, I had become the dragon myself. I opened my mouth, finding any defense pale. I could only say the most useless words. I'm sorry. Sorry? She looked like she heard the funniest joke, laughing until she bent over, laughing until tears came. She stopped, wiped the tear from her eye, and looked at me. I don't accept your apology. From her trench coat pocket, she pulled out a voice recorder. Want to know where I've been? She pressed play. A voice, old and weak, drifted out. It was Richard Vance. Sarah, Dad is sorry. Sorry to Marcus, too. The evidence is real. I have a secret account in Switzerland. It has my last nest egg. Password is your birthday. Take the money, go far away, don't come back. I went to prison. Serafina turned off the recording and looked at me. I saw him. He told me everything, including how he set the trap for your father step by step. He also told me. Her voice suddenly became very soft, eerie. He still held on to something. Evidence, proving your father, Marcus, was also involved in another dirty acquisition back then. Not a capital crime, but enough to turn the name Marcus Stone from a perfect victim into a complicit failure. My blood froze instantly. What do you mean? It means, she held up the small recorder, shaking it before me. Your father's innocence, the Stone family reputation, is now in my hands. You destroyed my world. Now, I'm giving you a choice. She looked at me with final madness. Judgment time, Caleb. Now, I am the judge. What do you want? I stared dead at the recorder, voice dry. I knew she was telling the truth. My father wasn't a saint in business. It wasn't strange Vance had dirt on him. If that evidence leaked, my entire revenge would become a joke. I would go from a dutiful son to a despicable heir cleaning house for a co-conspirator. What do I want? Serafina's lips hooked into a tragic arc. I don't want anything anymore, Caleb. I just want to watch you. Make a choice. She took a step back, walking to the edge of the roof. The night wind messed her hair. She looked like a black butterfly ready to be blown away. Choice 1. She held up a slender finger. I give this evidence, along with my father's recording, to the media. Your father's name is ruined. My father might even get a sentence reduction for cooperation. Then, I jump from here. Use my death to put the most ironic period on your great revenge. My heart constricted violently. You're crazy. I went crazy a long time ago. She screamed, losing control for the first time. I went crazy the moment you told me your last name was Stone. She took a deep breath, calming herself, eyes returning to ice. Choice 2. She looked at me with a penetrating gaze that saw through everything. You kneel. I shook all over. Kneel here. She pointed to the ground at her feet. Apologize for everything you did to me. Not for your revenge, but for your deception. Then, give up everything you have now. Give up Stone Enterprises. Return it to the Vance name, even if it's a shell. You leave with nothing. Return to your identity as Caleb, the penniless cellist. Then, her voice became extremely soft, carrying bewitching magic. You belong to me. Completely from body to soul, thoroughly mine. I will destroy all evidence, leaving your father's name forever clean. I will stay with you. Use the money my father left to build a new music room for you. But this time, the one in the cage is you. You will play forever for me alone. Your world is allowed only me. You can't see anyone, can't have friends. I will be your only audience, your only God, your only master. She opened her arms, like a witch embracing the abyss. Choose, Caleb. Use my life and your father's reputation to buy your freedom and victory. Or use your freedom and everything to buy your father's innocence. And me. Dead silence on the rooftop. I looked at her, this monster I had handcrafted. I knew this was a choice with no winner. Choose one. I win the world but lose the last piece of my soul, living forever in the shadow of her death and my father's ruined name. Choose 2. I lose the world, mortgage my soul, but save my father's final dignity and get her. Countless images flashed through my mind. My father's death, my humiliation, her tears, and her quiet face listening to the music in that room. I suddenly realized that what sustained me through those dark times, besides hatred, was something I refused to admit. It was a greed for that fake warmth. I hated her and I couldn't leave her. I created this monster. Now, I had to feed her myself. My revenge was never about justice. It was to fill the hole in my heart. And now, only she could fill that abyss. I dug wider and wider. After a long silence, slowly I bent my knees. Thud. I knelt on the cold concrete. I'm sorry, Sarah. I looked up at her, hatred gone from my eyes, leaving only a relieved exhaustion. I choose you. Serafina looked at me kneeling there and smiled. In that smile was victory, release, and endless sorrow. She walked to me, crouched down, extended her cold hand, and gently stroked my cheek, just like the first time we kissed in that luxury cage. Good boy, she whispered. Then, she tossed the recorder that decided everything off the high-rise. Our final contract was sealed, with my soul as collateral. A month later, Stone Enterprises announced bankruptcy and restructuring, acquired by a new overseas fund. The company name reverted to Vance. And I, Caleb Stone, the name that stirred massive waves in the NYC business world, completely evaporated. No one knew where I went. In a seaside estate far from the city noise, I had a new identity, Caleb, a personal artist kept by Serafina Vance. This estate was the ultimate, most magnificent cage she built for me. It had the best recording studio, every top-model cello in the world, endless sheet music. It also had the tightest security system and the most loyal servants. I couldn't take a step outside. My world was only her. Every day, in the glass conservatory facing the sea, I played for her. She would wear white dresses, bare feet, sitting quietly opposite me, listening all afternoon. Her eyes were no longer cold like the past, nor crazy like later. It was a dead silence of gentleness, as if everything in the world had perished, leaving only me and her, and my music. We spoke little. All communication was in the music. I played joyous movements, and the corner of her mouth would lift slightly. I played sad melodies, and tears would slide from her eyes. She was no longer the high and mighty queen, and I wasn't the prisoner begging for pity. We were more like two birds with broken wings in the same storm, leaning on each other, licking the wounds we inflicted on one another. One dusk, I finished the last piece. The sunset dyed the entire conservatory a warm gold. She walked to me, hugged me gently from behind, pressing her face against my back. Caleb, she whispered, play for me again. That one, okay. I didn't ask which one. I knew. I reset the cello, closed my eyes, and laid the bow on the strings. The slow, solemn melody, carrying bone-deep sorrow, sounded once again. Box air on the G string. It was the overture to our story and the final chapter of our fate. The music echoed in the empty conservatory, weaving with the sound of distant waves. I heard her whisper behind my back. You were right. Music is the echo of the heart. Look now, our hearts have finally become the same. They're both dead. I didn't stop. I just played, letting that sorrowful melody imprison us both forever in this beautiful golden cage. For revenge, I seduced my enemy's daughter. In the end, the revenge was complete, and I, willingly, became her eternal prisoner. Story complete.